Hello, my friends, once again. Luiz Lima here, broadcasting from Orlando, Florida. This is Spiritism, a closer look, and you are on Kardec Radio. We do this broadcasting every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So, tonight we are going to take a closer look at cultural aspects of societies. So societies and culture, we have been discussing this in the past few weeks. So we are gonna address one more angle, if you will, today from the spiritist point of view, of course. Uh, you can find some valuable information that we are gonna use in the program today, right here on this book, What is Spiritism? On chapter 3, there's a segment named Human Beings During Their Life on Earth. And there's a set of items in there. So that's where we're going to take the information from for tonight's broadcast. So here we go. Cultural aspects of society. So let's get started. I think one thing that is, I'm not going to say important, but we should all think about is what exactly means culture. How should we, especially as spiritists, how should we understand the concept of culture? How should we look at it? Well, if you take the dictionary, you go to the Webster dictionary, it's got two interesting definitions. I'm just going to read them to you. Number one, the customary beliefs, social forms, and material traits of a racial, religious, or social group. So it's a set of beliefs, basically, right? And habits and stuff like that. And there's a second definition: the set of shared attitudes, values, goals, and practices that characterizes an institution or organization. A society is some sort of organized group. So I think the definition is pretty broad, but it has, if you go to the bottom of it, it has to do with like a belief system in terms of a racial group, a religious group, a social group. It's something common to everyone. It's like in many ways we could say that a culture of a society, it's DNA or its mindset, because the whole society organizes with that as a core. It as its core, it has a culture or a mindset, and people gather because they subscribe to that culture or to that mindset. That's how these groups, these societies are formed. So they carry on this culture from generation to generation. Now, one thing important is culture is affected by time and place. It's not eternal. It is affected by different factors, but especially by time and place. Time matters, place matters. Two societies in different points of the planet not necessarily carry the same culture. A society 200 years ago or 2,000 years ago and now don't necessarily carry the same culture. So time matters, place matters. And why is that? That's the beginning of, let's try to understand what's happening here. So why does time and place matter to the understanding of it? Well, think about this. The culture is formed or created and established by spirits, incarnated spirits. In our case, planet Earth, by imperfect spirits, or also called third order spirits. So these spirits created, or they formed, and they established, they sustained that culture. Now, as these spirits advance, the society as a whole advance, and the cultural aspects must follow that. Otherwise, we would still be 4,000 years ago, 6,000 years ago. We wouldn't have any advancement, and that's not true. We know that. So the imperfect spirits that originally created these cultures many thousands of years ago, they created a basic culture that was evolving because all those spirits, they incarnated many times over, better each time, better each time. We never go backwards in terms of moral and intellectual advancement. So you kind of, on your next life, you kind of, pick up from where you left, if you will. So society advances because of that. Reincarnation is a tool that makes the spirit individually advance, thus the society it belongs to also advance with it. So culture must follow all of these things. Culture is not static, it's dynamic. It changes. That's why we're saying time matters, place matters. A culture depends on the moral and intellectual development of its members or its individuals. It has to do with that. It has to, uh, uh, the mindset will change with time. So some of the aspects will vanish. For example, some of the cultural aspects will vanish with time. And you got to look back and say, oh my God, 1,000 years ago, this particular country, for example, or region of the planet, they were doing this and this and this. Oh my God, it's so different from us today. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's the sign of advancement. Some of the cultural aspects had to be left behind because they didn't apply anymore. They just vanished. So if you look at history, for example, if you look at the Age of Enlightenment, around 1750, it brings a new view of things. It brings a new element into life as a whole, which is I would say, it picks up what was left behind in terms of philosophy. So philosophy comes back into the game, we could say that. And that changes everything because until then, until the 1750s, and that started probably in the 100s or maybe 200s, with the power of the church being bigger and bigger and bigger, it oppressed everybody. It made us all think of one way of doing things, of facing life. And then there was a point where some of the French philosophers said, hold on, we got a brain, we got to think, we can ask questions, we have to be more rational and less theological. That's what the Age of Enlightenment brings. So it brings a new mindset. So after the Age of Enlightenment, some of the cultural aspects across the globe started to change. The first one to change right after it is the French Revolution. French Revolution is a mindset change, a radical mindset change where we say, we don't want this king and this uh, and its people in power. These people in power, we don't want them to treat us the way we have been treated so far. So let's change it. Same for industrial revolution. We are capable of doing more. We have intellect. We can develop more. We are, you know, prone to do better than what we do now. That's a mindset change. So you see, the French Revolution was a cultural brings with it a cultural change. Same for the Industrial Revolution. They bring these changes because the societies are advancing. So the culture has to follow this. Now, the spirits in a society, they are in different levels of advancement. In one society or in one culture, we have many spirits. Let's say, for example, a country, whatever country you want to imagine. So within a country, you have a basic culture. As actually, sometimes in one country, you have many cultures, especially large countries. no? Because it's geographically, one part of the certain cities are so apart from others that the culture is completely different, and we know that. So anyway, we have in the same society people in different uh, points of the spiritist scale. Let me bring this to you. We've spoke about this several times. We have two of our programs in late last year. They were about the spirit scale, which is what you see here on the right side of your screen. So, what is this? It's a, in very few words, a classification of spirits based on moral and intellectual advancement. The less advanced ones in the bottom, impure, the most advanced ones on the top, pure. So, in the planet or on Earth, we have spirits from all these groups, all of them. We're all mixed here. So, we have spirits that are just starting out per se, pure. We have frivolous, we have benevolent, we have high order, pure. We had one, Jesus. So we are all in the same boat, if you want to use that. And that's very complicated because within the same cultural aspect, we have people from different degrees of moral and intellectual advancement. And that makes things not really easy. You see, and that ties into the law of progress because all these categories, all spirits from all categories at the same time, it ties into the law of progress and the law of society. Is the law of progress and the law of society, they require that all spirits live together as a tool for moral advancement. So why would we have, for example, spirits in the very lower part of the scale? And some, if, for example, let's just say that the planet is on a certain level where impure spirits are rare because they almost don't exist here anymore. Occasionally, one or another appears here and there. But why is that? Well, think about that. The less evolved spirits, they are, everybody has opportunity. God has no favorites. So spirits are given equal opportunity. These lower on the scale spirits, they also have the opportunity to have a glimpse of what they can be and what they will be by living among more advanced spirits. Right? That's one of the ways that you can find out what's out there. So if you place, let's just say, a frivolous spirit in a planet where most spirits are neutral, it is beneficial for them. Of course, there's going to be, it needs to be understood from both parts, but it is beneficial for that spirit. Also, it is beneficial for the higher order spirits, the ones that are above that level, because they will have the opportunity to help and serve, helping that spirit that is not advanced as they are to bring them up in terms of morality, in terms of intellectuality. So you see, it's a win-win thing. It's a win-win situation. And because of this blend, this confusion, we have to adjust our social laws from time to time as the society evolves. Lower end spirits will be not so lower on the next life and the next one, and so and so. So we need to understand this. They also have the opportunity to grow. So they have to be placed somewhere where they can grow by looking at those who are more advanced. Okay, so we mentioned the book in the beginning. What is Spiritism? let me just bring three of the interesting questions on the parts that we discussed earlier. So here it is, question 141, or item 141, which is really a question. In the midst of civilized societies, why are there individuals of a level of ferociousness similar to the most barbaric primitives? That's pretty intense, right? Pretty harsh words in there. So why? That's what I was just mentioning a couple of minutes ago. Why do we have spirits so low on the scale in civilized societies? Meaning societies that in which the majority of the spirits are not on the lower part of the scale; they're up somewhere. Here's the answer from the spirits. They are. It's talking about those less advanced. They are little evolved spirits who have left their former barbaric cultures to incarnate in an environment unfamiliar to them and in which they feel out of place, just as a boor would feel if suddenly brought into the environment of high society. Okay, let's understand this here. It's similar to one of these. By the way, there's a lot of interesting movies about time travel. Hollywood produced and still produces a lot of movies like that. So we see at times people, quotes please, coming back from the past, from the early 1800s, from the 1600s. They show up in modern days with their clothing they are transported into time, into modern day. So they still have their clothes from the 1700s. And they show up and they are like, wow, I don't belong here. I'm out of place. They cannot even comprehend that. Of course, this is a movie, but the idea is the same. The concept is the same. They can't comprehend because it's too far advanced for the level he is. It's what the spirits called here the unfamiliar environment. Unfamiliar environment. So the unfamiliar environment, the concept of bringing somebody into a spirit into an unfamiliar environment, more advanced, is exactly that. So the spirit can see what it is like, and just work towards being like that because it's better, it's more advanced. So on the next few lives, that spirit will be able to incarnate in in a better condition, in a more advanced environment. So let's take a look at this other question here. Question 142. Where do the distinctive characteristics of the various cultures come from? That's interesting. This is what the spirits tell us. From spirits who share more or less the same tastes and inclinations, and who incarnate in a sympathetic environment and often in the same environment where they can satisfy such inclinations. So that's exactly the concept of culture. If you want to think of a similar situation in a more, I would say, materialistic way, think about this. You are born on a certain country. Then you grow up, and you don't feel like you belong there. You feel like you belong someplace else. So you travel here and there, and you get to another country and say, "Oh my God, I just love this place. This is my place. I want to move in here one day." That's more or less like this. Your tastes, your inclinations are more in line with that other country, not necessarily the country you were born. So, and that's why migration of all types happen. I'm talking about migration from between countries, physical life here, incarnated life, because you're looking for something that goes along with your tastes, and inclinations. And the same thing happens when the spirit is going to incarnate. It looks for a more sympathetic environment. And like the spirit said, very often it is the same environment that we're used to or lived before. And then I want to bring the next thing here, which is another question, item 143. How do cultures progress and decay? That's the rise and fall of cultures, right? Cultures rise, they go on for a while, and they decay. And why is that? Well, think about this. The rise and fall of a culture is part of a natural law because it is part of the law of progress. Progress must prevail. It will happen. So things that are great today might not be so great tomorrow. So there will be changes. The cultural aspects will be replaced. So culture aspects progress or changes because of the constant sequential reincarnation of spirits that are getting better at each incarnation. And they will feel the need to do something different that they did before. So generations, they move. When they move a step forward, these new arrivals, per se, will be more advanced spirits than before. Otherwise, the society would never move. We would never left the dock. A society advances for that one reason. New arrivals on sequential or upcoming generations will be more advanced. So cultures come and go. They are volatile. Example, culture of slavery. It had its days. Not anymore. Because society evolved. How does society evolve? Because the spirits, individuals evolved as spirits. And there was a point where it made no more sense. So slavery was left behind. Here's another one, duels. Two people with a gun. That happened for a very long time in Europe, here throughout the process of the colonization of the United States and the Western states. It happened a lot. But then there's a point where you say, come on, what's the point? Because spirits are advancing and they feel the need to drop that. It doesn't apply to me anymore. I don't want to be part of this culture anymore. Or I don't want this element to be part of my culture. So we're going to leave it out. We don't sustain that anymore. Culture is about sustaining values, sustaining behaviors, sustaining habits. So there's a point where I say, no, this one here, no more. So as the spirits evolve, that's another thing. Free will becomes more refined. So the spirit learns to make better choices and develop better actions. So we go from this, oh yeah, I can do anything I want, to something like, I will do what is good for my moral improvement. It's a radical change. So as spirits advance, they become more, all of us, selective. So we go from anarchy to harmony with the divine. No longer anarchy. I'm going to organize myself. I'm going to reorder myself as a spirit, my feelings, my sentiments in such a way that I don't want to do anarchy anymore. I'm not here to dethrone God. I'm here to be in line with them. Enough suffering. That's it. So that's a mindset change. With that, the individuals on that society that follow along will create a new culture for that society. So cultures will sooner or later harmonize their laws with the divine laws. Societies will sooner or later harmonize their laws, human laws, with the divine laws. As the society develops, the law has to change because certain things don't make sense anymore. They're no longer needed. Just like I gave you two examples, slavery, duels, and there are others. So there's a point where it doesn't make sense anymore to have this particular thing in my law because it's already, done. Everybody understands. We got past that point. So it doesn't need to be a law anymore. So societies will harmonize their laws with the divine laws, and that's the goal. That's what we are here for, to be better people, to be more intellectually and morally advanced as individuals, and as a consequence, as a group, as a society, making its culture follow along. So one day, the culture is going to be follow the God's laws. Nothing else is necessary. Thank you very much, my friends, for joining us today. We will be here again next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Don't forget, Kardec Radio, Spiritism, a closer look. I'll see you next time. Be well.